Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? So, patch 11 is here at long last, and it's a big one. So, grab yourself a drink, strap yourself in, and let's take a look at what Bethesda have got for us. So, patch 11 notes. July 16, 2019. Patch 11 is here and brings with us a list of adjustments and fixes to Adventure Mode and Nuclear Winter. Grab the punch bowl, it's back, and settle into a full list of patch notes for today's update. There we go then. So, patch highlights, power armor improvements, item descriptions getting a makeover, nuclear winter balance changes, better experience for new players, and the return of the punch bowl. So, what are we looking at? Download sizes 5.5 gig for consoles and 2.5 gig for PC. I'm not surprised they're fairly big. There is an awfully large amount in here. So, let's take a look. So, power armor improvements. We've reworked the underlying systems behind power armor to address a ton of power armor related bugs, improve performance, and help the entire system function more smoothly overall. I think everybody will be only too happy to hear about that. While most of these are under the hood improvements, we believe these changes will help you have better experiences and encounter fewer issues while wearing your favorite set of power armor. It's cool. So it sounds like a wide range of little things behind the scenes just to make the whole system flow more easily, which is definitely welcome. I think it's been needed for some time, so looking forward to seeing that go much more smoothly. There's all manner of weird things go on around power armor, so hopefully some improvements there. As this brings a significant update to our power armor systems, some players may notice the following one-time side effects upon logging in after downloading today's patch. Pay attention to this one, that's quite a big thing, and well, actually it's kind of not, but it'll probably weird you out if you're not expecting it. Power armor pieces may have unequipped from power armor chassis you own and moved from your stash to your inventory or vice versa. You'll need to re-equip these pieces after logging in. Some players may receive an extra power armor chassis or extra power armor pieces in their inventory or stash that weren't there prior to patch 11. These are items that didn't save correctly when you originally collected them, and the power armor improvements mentioned above have restored them. So you might be getting some free unexpected equipment, as always a bonus. If you had one or more power armor chassis in your stash before installing patch 11, your character may have been moved to a train station in the world. Not specifying which one, hopefully the closest one, but this was done to help players who become over-encumbered due to power armor pieces and chassis moving into their inventory transfer those items back into their stash without needing to walk home from their current location in the world, which could slow you down quite a lot potentially. So yeah, you may find when you log back in, you'll be unexpectedly moved to a train station if you've got power armor in your stash that has then moved into your inventory and over-encumbered you. So it's a nice little thing there. It's something they probably didn't have to do. There's a little addition to smooth the transition for people, which is good. That's good thinking, that. I wholeheartedly approve of that change. Art and graphics changes. New animation plays upon entering power armor from a power armor station. Sounds interesting. So something specific to getting into power armor if you left it in a power armor station. Interested to see what that might be. It's always cool to see. So, Atomic Shop. Featured screen rewards. The Atomic Shop's featured screen has received a facelift. Many more items and offers will now appear at once, making it easy to see the current set of featured items at a glance. Okay, that's cool. Should hopefully take away some of the aggravation from side-scrolling through it, which is cool. And basic repair kits. When purchasing basic repair kits, players can now select which character they'd like to receive them. Nice little quality of life change, which to be fair encapsulates a lot of what we've got here. It's mostly quality of life stuff, which is very, very welcome in a lot of cases. So, camp crafting and workshops. Bulk junk. This is something we've been crying out for a long time. I know I'm very, very happy to see this one. The scrap all junk option no longer automatically scraps bulk junk at workbenches. Bulk junk will continue to be automatically scrapped for necessary components while crafting or repairing. So you don't have to worry about the total waste of plastic if you've bulked everything, pick something else up and then run over to scrap it. And once again, the punch bowl is back. You can now add alcohol to it or drink alcohol from it, which once you can place it as a visual item recently, you couldn't actually add anything to it, so whatever the issue was, clearly they've sorted that out, which is good to see. 44 pistol. Nuclear material has been replaced by gears in crafting requirements for all 44 pistol mods, except for the prime revolver. That makes a lot of sense. Doesn't really make any sense that a 44 would require nuclear material to craft it, so removing that and replacing it with gears does make sense, which is good. And for the ski sword, crafting requirements for the scape mod have been reduced and the makeshift warrior perk requirement has been removed, making that particular addition a little bit easier to get, because after all it's not particularly complicated, so that does kind of make sense. So ski sword's easier to upgrade, which is always good. So design and gameplay. Loot. This is a good one for just about everybody, I think. Legendary items dropped as loot by a legendary enemy will now appear much quicker upon that enemy's corpse. Nice, less puffing around waiting for them to load in. Nice little optimization change there, which is cool. Here's one that I'm very glad to see, although it's a little late in some ways. Deathclaws now have a chance to drop Deathclaw hides upon death, whereas previously they had no chance. And I spent a goodly number of hours on one of the possum challenges trying to get one of the badges there that required you to scrap a certain number of Deathclaw hides. I must have killed, oh god, probably 10 at least Deathclaws without getting one. And they're not so common as that's something you want, so hopefully that particular challenge will be much easier to complete. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Leatherworker, possibly. But either way, it'll be much easier to complete now that you can get Deathclaw hides by killing Deathclaws. So that's a welcome change. Acid can now drop as loot when killing cave crickets. Okay, fine. Respawn. Dying in an interior location, such as the burrows, now automatically respawns the players near where they entered that location in most cases. So presumably most of the time that means you will spawn inside the area rather than outside. With the burrows, if you die, you basically respawn outside the entrance. So that's cool. One less loading screen to go through is always welcome. Spoilage. All raw food items and fluxes now last 50% longer before spoiling. Doesn't look like this affects cooked stuff, just the raw stuff, which is welcome. That means you've got more time to cook it up, which is always good. Same with fluxes, they won't spoil and become inert quite as quickly as they used to, which is always good. Fast travelling no longer causes food and drink to take condition loss, which it did before. It's the only way in which fast travel has any kind of time-related effect. You look at Fallout 4, for example, when you fast travel, time advances. With Fallout 76, with it being a shared world, obviously that doesn't. The one exception was food and drink taking conditional loss. So that imbalance has now been corrected, which is nice to see. And stealth boys can now be used while wearing power armor. Cool. That means you can not use the stealth modification on your power armor, use a stealth boy instead, and take advantage of an extra ability, which is always welcome. So, UI changes. Combat. Slight blurring effect now appears on screen when taking damage to better indicate that the character is experiencing pain. Interesting idea. If done correctly, that could be fun and quite a natural part of the combat system. If overdone, it could be kind of... it would make life a bit more difficult, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but could be kind of aggravating. So hopefully that works out well. So item descriptions, this is a big one from the highlights, and one I think a lot of people are going to be happy to see. Additional information is now displayed in the menus for legendary items, for mods, and for recipes. So, when selecting a legendary item in trade, vending, or a container menu, all of its legendary attributes will now appear instead of just the first. So you don't have to faff around going into the examine menu to see everything, you just see it, which is great. When inspecting a recipe or mod, the description for the resulting item now appears under the item's name. Great, there's certainly a good few mods that didn't explain what they did. And they've left me scratching my head on several occasions, so that's a welcome change. And when selecting a recipe or mod in trade, vending, or container menus, the description for the resulting item now appears above the item's stats. Okay, so it tells you what it's attached to, I suppose, or what it attaches to. I think that is what that's implying, which is fine, that's a good change. Instruments. Players can now rotate the game camera while playing musical instruments, which is a fun little thing. It just gives you a little bit more interactivity, which is nice. Improved map marker ordering and selection to help address how icons are highlighted when several markers overlap each other on the map. So basically if you're trying to look at a location and maybe an event and a player as well, and they're all in the same place, you should be able to move through those a bit more easily, which is cool. They've tried to do this in the past with limited success, so hopefully it'll pan out a little better this time. The Purveyor. Weapon and armor model previews now appear in the Purveyor's trade menu when browsing item categories. Not quite sure how that's going to work given the random roll of them, but it'll be interesting to see. Give it a little bit more interest to looking through the purveyor's menu anyway. And settings, an enable power armor HUD option has been added to the display settings, which can be toggled to decide whether to display the power armor HUD or the standard one when wearing power armor. Disabling this will cause the Quick Boy menu to display when viewing the Pip-Boy instead of the usual power armor version. There's just a nice little player option, quality of life change that allow you to decide whether or not you want that particular heads-up display. Personally, I think I'll be keeping it, but if you're not into that, that's going to free up a little bit of screen real estate, if nothing else, which is always cool. So, gameplay improvements for new players. We made a number of changes to the early game to help dwellers who are just stepping out of Vault 76 better adapt to wasteland life. Okay, so I have mixed feelings on some of these, but this particular set of patch notes has alleviated at least some of those, which is cool to see. So, camp deployment. Redeploying a camp shortly after deployment no longer incurs a caps penalty. So if you place your camp unit down and it's not quite positioned where you want it to be, the limits of the area aren't where you want them, you can pick it up and move it as long as you do it quick enough, and it won't cost you any extra caps, which is definitely a welcome change. Not overjoyed to see that particular one under the new player heading though. It kind of implies that a bit further on that will stop being the case. It's not really clear one way or the other there. I'm hoping it's going to apply to everybody, but it doesn't look like that will, but still, welcome for new players anyway. Challenges. The rewards for many early game challenges have been reworked and now award items that will help a new player survive, such as aid, weapons, armor, and etc., instead of atoms. So a lot of people, certainly early on, I don't know if it's still going on so much, were creating new characters, running through the early game, clearing off all the challenges in the early game for new characters in order to rack up atoms. So that's no longer going to be an option. It's going to mean that new characters will get stuff they can use and they need, which is cool. But at the same time, it means you end up being pushed towards buying atoms with real-world money a bit sooner. So mixed feelings on that. I think most people will share that opinion. On the one hand, nobody really wants to be pushed towards that any sooner. But on the other hand, this is how Bethesda fund the game. They do have to pay their staff and so on and so forth, particularly if we want to keep receiving free updates. So that is how they're going to go and do it. So swings and roundabouts, I guess. Let me know what you guys think. Curious to hear your take on it. Diseases. Players must now be level 15 or higher to receive a disease. Okay, little change. Certainly smooth the entrance into the game for new players. Once you've got the hang of it, I mean, diseases, they're not really much more than an inconvenience, really, so it is what it is, but by level 15 you should have picked up a few disease cures, so you should be able to manage it a little more easily, which is probably welcome. So, enemy difficulty adjustments. This is a little bit of a controversial topic, I think. I have mixed feelings on this. It's basically making enemies easier and areas of the game that new characters will enter into significantly easier. And I have very mixed feelings on that. I'm very reluctant to see the game getting easier. Particularly as once you get the hang of it, you've been playing for a while, it's not the most challenging thing in the world anyway. On the other hand, it looks like they've focused this very, very specifically on areas that are pretty much only visited by new players and not so much by more established characters, which is a good way to go about it, although there is one exception. So, in the Ash Heap, the level range for creature spawns have been reduced from 15 to 35 to 15 to 20 in the following locations: Belching Betty, the Ash Forge, and the Rusty Pick. So that's two very, very specific locations. Three, rather, very specific locations. Can't count to three today, apparently. Wonderful. So, not a large area, just very, very specific locations, which is cool. I think that's a good change. I was a little concerned it might affect a bigger area, which will then catch more players in that particular net, but it doesn't look like that's the case. Savage Divide, on the other hand, maybe a little overkill on this one. The level range for creature spawns has been reduced from 15 to 99 to 15 to 25, which is a massive drop, in the following locations: Top of the World, Pleasant Valley Ski Resort, Pleasant Valley Cabins, Pleasant Valley Train Station, NAR Regional, Fisherside Tower, Cliffwatch, Stealth Cutthroat Camp, and Beckwith Farm. So these are all the areas in sort of the immediate region of the Top of the World, which is the first major quest location you head to as a player, certainly when you're following the main story. So lowering the difficulty from potentially 99 in that area makes a lot of sense, but I think dropping it all the way down to 25 is maybe a bit much. Unless you're really rushing through, there's a good chance you're going to be past 25 or in the region of 25 at that point. So it's not going to be too much of a challenge. I would have thought maybe 35, something like that, maybe as high as 40 would be a bit more reasonable. But that's just in the area around the top of the world, really. So it's not that big a hit, but I do find players return to that area more than perhaps some of the other listed areas. So maybe a little bit overkill in my opinion there. And for the Toxic Valley, the level range for creature spawns has been reduced from 10 to 25 to 10 to 15, which is fine. In the locations of Cobbleton Farm, Becker Farm, Grafton, Clarksburg, the Eastern Regional Penitentiary, mixed feelings there, and Smith Farm. So basically, those early game areas are going to be a little bit easier to tackle if you wind up there a bit earlier on. Probably a good change. I don't know that it was really necessary there, given that 25 is the upper limit. There's a couple of areas in the Toxic Valley where you run into enemies that are significantly higher than that. I've run into enemies of 40 plus up there, so I'd have thought focusing on those would be more likely and probably more worthwhile, but not a critical change, I don't think there. So events. Fertile soil now triggers in a smaller area and is confined to the Vault-Tec Agricultural Research Centre. Presumably, if we stop by Flatwoods, which I know I do on occasion, you won't trigger that particular event unless you push off more in the direction of the Vault-Tec Agricultural Centre, which is fine, because you do get tired of it triggering every time you stop back there, so probably a good change. I'm hoping they'll put something that'll push new players in that direction, though, otherwise they might miss it. Who knows? Fast travel. Cap costs when fast travelling have been reduced for players under level 25. Yep, probably a good change when you're at your poorest, so definitely welcome to reduce that particular sting in the old wallet. And by the time you get past level 25, yeah, you're probably building up enough caps, assuming you haven't been spending them left, right, centre anyway, that you're going to be okay. So, holotapes. This I'm not so convinced on. I'm not quite sure what the deal with this is. Government supply requisition holotapes will no longer spawn in Flatwoods and cannot be looted by players who have not yet reached level 10 or higher. Okay, to be honest, those supply requisitions are practically useless anyway. I've never got anything I actually wanted out of them, past about level 10 anyway. But on the other hand, up until now, when you head to the Overseer's camp, you get a few miscellaneous quest objectives, which are good for picking up a quick bit of early XP, and introduce you to some of the game's mechanics. One of those is to call in a supply requisition, or it certainly was anyway, so I'm guessing that's been removed. It doesn't specify here, but if you can't do it at level 10, you'll probably be on your way out of Flatwoods by then, so who knows. Seems like an odd choice, that particular change. Random encounters. Removed a random encounter that could cause a large group of level 5 Protectrons to spawn for low-level players on the road to Flatwoods. Not something I've ever seen myself, but I could imagine why a large group of them would cause issues at, say, level 3 to 5, which will probably be when you're heading through there. So, yeah, getting jumped by a large number of Protectrons could give you a cause for panic, particularly if you're brand new to the game. Of course, on the other hand, that would be absolutely hilarious to watch, but, you know, there's usually people around who'll help you out. So, nuclear winter balance changes. Right top of the list, the big one everybody's been crying out for, apart from people who love the perk a bit too much, maybe. Frog legs. Jumping in rapid succession will now temporarily reduce the maximum jump height and require a short rest to recuperate. Now, I'd like to see a little more detail here, but still, that's a significant nerf to a very, very overpowered perk, so very, very welcome, I think, for most people there. I'm sure those who have built their characters around frog legs will probably be quite peeved, especially if they start seeing themselves dying more often. But I think it's a welcome change to a very imbalanced card there. Each successive jump temporarily reduces your maximum jump height. Cool, reducing its effectiveness rather than keeping you flying around in the sky for ages. And the short rest to recuperate. Don't know if that means there's a delay before you can jump again, or if it just means it'll be a little while before you can then jump back to maximum height again. But either way, it'll slow down the frequency at which you can use that. I think it's still going to be a very valuable card, particularly as you can use it for surprise attacks still, but should hopefully reduce some of the impact. Still, they might reduce it in future patches if it's still not enough, if it still feels overpowered. The Master Perk cards. Select Master Perk cards have had bonus damage reductions. This is a little poorly worded, I think. I think it's what it's trying to say is that the bonus damage that these cards give you is now less than it used to be. I think they were all set at 40% extra damage, and now presumably that's been pulled back a little bit. So that covers Commando Master, Heavy Gunner, Guerrilla Rifleman, and Shotgun Masters, and Demolition Expert as well. In general, they were too powerful and began to feel more like required perks than options, so we balanced them out to reflect the cost value. So, weapons. Explosive weapons greatly increase the damage that explosive weapons deal against camp objects and structures. They were seriously underpowered before, but they were basically not doing any damage to camp structures at all. So, definitely a good change. It was bullets or nothing previously, so that's a simple little change that's very worthwhile. Won't otherwise affect their usefulness, but they'll make a lot more sense, I think, that way. The laser auto pistol now no longer fires multiple beams per shot, so it no longer looks like a shotgun. It'll just fire a single beam rapidly, which is cool. This is an interesting one. The Scoped Hunting Rifle. They've reduced the size of the Scoped Hunting Rifle's magazine from 5 to 1. So this is to help the scoped gunplay of this weapon feel smoother and shouldn't affect its DPS. So presumably the bolting action will still take the same amount of time, but it'll be a full reload rather than just a bolting action. So as long as that hasn't been slowed down, and it shouldn't really make any difference. But it's an odd choice. I'm not quite sure what change they're actually looking for there. But it's always felt a little bit awkward to use in Nuclear Winter to me, that particular gun. But there we go. To see exactly how that change pans out. So, bug fixes. Taking a very rapid scroll down here, as we can see, there are quite a few. And the list goes on and on and on and on, and then we get to Nuclear Winter, which is considerably shorter, to be fair. Just as well. So, I strongly recommend that you take a look at the patch notes yourselves if you want to have a look at the bug fixes. There are absolutely loads of them. I'll put a link to them down in the description so you can hop over and take a look yourself. However, here are a few that I have pulled out that are, I think, particularly interesting and will interest you guys in particular. So we're going to blast through these quite quickly, I think, because the clock is fairly ticking up by now. So, camp crafting and workshops. Blueprints. Fixed an issue that would cause some floating errors while trying to place a blueprint. Nowhere in here does it mention the angled wall pieces and stuff like that, that occasionally it will say they're floating when they're not. So, hopefully this will be captured either in here or in a later one that we'll touch on in just a second. But it's not been mentioned specifically, so that's a little unfortunate. Exploit. Just an exploit that could allow players to place a camp in an unintended area in Charleston. I wish I'd known where that was before they removed it. Would have been quite cool. Fashion Act objects. Address several Fashion Act themed camp objects to reduce instances that could result in clipping. Wonderful. Foundations can no longer be placed entirely underground. Not sure why you'd want to, apart from possibly with the cave build I did recently, Mark II one, at the top end of the Savage Divide. One of the foundations there was almost entirely underground. So just how strong the effect here will be, I don't know, but something to keep an eye on. But it seems like a sensible fix. So fix several issues related to foundations that could result in errors like part of the structure would become inaccessible, presumably meaning you can scrap them more easily, which is always welcome. Pioneer Scout posters and banners can now be repaired. Good to see. Wall decor. Fix an issue that could cause decoration items to appear to float in certain situations. Address an issue that could prevent certain objects from being placed on walls correctly. I've noticed a few of those, so that's a welcome change. Walls. Fix the bug preventing to place a half wall on top of another half wall when it's placed on a foundation. Now I think this might fix the issue surrounding placing the triangular wall pieces that connect walls to roofs, or sloped roofs rather. So hopefully that will fix the issue that has prevented those from being placed, but it's not explicitly saying that, so we'll have to see, I guess. So mostly little things that should hopefully make your building experience flow more easily. So, challenges. There's a couple of interesting ones in here. To earn credit for challenges that require players to kill creatures, like kill different types of tough enemies challenge, no longer require you to land the killing blow. Where a creature is killed, players who dealt enough damage to earn experience will now receive challenge credit even if another player scores the final hit, which is definitely a welcome fix. It means it'll make these kill tough enemy challenges significantly easier to complete when you're in a group. Less faffing required, which is always welcome. Well, the Metalworker Possum Badge sub-challenge, Visit New River Gorge, has been removed. That just plain didn't work, so it's a welcome change. Fix an issue preventing some Musician Possum Badge sub-challenges from completing correctly when playing various instruments. By some, see all. So hopefully you'll be able to now get the Musician Possum Badge, which is welcome, so it should mean it's now easier to get not just the first possum upgrade that you want, but subsequent ones as well, because things that were previously ignored, like the Musician Challenge, will be completable, so you'll be able to get some extra badges, which is definitely positive. Several Photographer Possum Badge sub-challenges that were difficult to complete have been removed. Don't mind them being difficult, but some of them are very, very difficult, so that's always welcome. Should make that a little bit easier to acquire. So some bug fixes for items. Bloodied. Weapons with a Bloodied legendary mod now display the correct amount of damage in the Pip-Boy as the player takes or heals damage. This was a visual issue and the mod's actual damage values have not been changed, so at least you can figure out how much damage you're doing more easily. A couple of exploits. Address an exploit that could cause a magazine or bobblehead to become duplicated, so there's another one of those gone, always welcome. Address an exploit that could prevent a player from being killed by radiation damage. Okay, so nobody's going to be immune to radiation anymore, apart from in circumstances where you should be. Which I don't think there are any, so that's a good change. So this is a significant one that I think will affect quite a lot of people. Handmade Rifle. Drum Magazine mod for the Handmade Rifle now correctly increases the Handmade Rifle's ammo capacity by 50%, which is consistent with the Drum Magazine mod for other weapons. So basically, you're no longer going to get 80 bullets in your magazine, you'll get probably something like 40 or 50 maybe? I'm not exactly sure. But it was previously kind of crazy, so I'm not surprised to see that. I'm sure plenty of people will be a little disappointed, but I'm not surprised, to be honest. Plasma weapons. Fixed an issue that could sometimes cause plasma weapon attacks to pass through a target without dealing damage. Can we have that for some other weapons as well, please? I've pulled off multiple headshots that have not registered. Yeah, okay. Good, but let's expand that a little bit. That'd be nice. Power armor. Broken pieces of power armor will now remain equipped when exiting power armor. So they'll stay on the frame, which is always good. They just won't provide any benefit. That makes sense. Repeatedly entering and exiting a set of power armor and a power armor station no longer sometimes causes the player to become stuck in their power armor. Good. And stimpaks can no longer be used if the player's health is already full when wearing power armor. So that means you won't be wasting so many, which is always welcome. And weapons. This is a fun one. Oil spills can now be ignited by a wider variety of weapons. So not the most damaging effect out there, but kind of fun to do. Nice to know you've got a few more options for igniting oil spills, so yeah, that's cool. Quests and events. So I'm not going to go through these, but there are a number of small changes that will just smooth the progression. Things like when you've got to escort a character or something to that effect, the progress shouldn't get stuck on objects in the world quite so much, things like that. So have a look for yourself if you want to see in a bit more detail, but there's a number of little changes like that that should be quite welcome, I think. A couple of performance and stability changes, which are always very welcome. Would like to see more of these, but it's what it is. I assume that's more difficult to do than it would appear. Loading. Attempting to report a player while loading into a world no longer sometimes causes an infinite loading screen. Reduce the time it takes to return to the main menu after leaving a world. And address the performance issue relating to quest items. Very, very vague, but we'll take any performance improvements we can get, I guess. The UI. Quite a few changes here, but here's a couple of significant ones. Respawn. Players can now correctly respawn at their camp when they are over encumbered. Could solve a lot of problems if you could only respawn at Vault 76 and you've got a long way to go. So I think that's a welcome fix there. And a couple for player vending. Fix an issue that could prevent players from scrolling through their inventory to mark additional items for sale in a vending machine. basically it should function as intended, and you'll be able to mark things correctly, rather than having it jam up, which is, yeah, a little bit frustrating. Not the end of the world, because it's usually been possible to work around it, but nice to see that fixed. Fixed an issue where vending information incorrectly cleared when the character is loaded, presumably meaning you have to start over and refill your vending machines, so if that's what that is, it's a welcome fix. And fixed an issue where sometimes players would remain in the player vending menu if the camp was moved or the vending machine was scrapped or stored, or presumably if players logged out as well. I've had occasions where the menu did stay up even after a camp disappeared around me, so that should now boot you out the menu as intended, because I don't know what knock-on effects being able to still interact with the menu could have, but it's certainly not as intended, so good to see that functioning the way you would expect it. So a number of bug fixes for Nuclear Winter, but the biggest ones that I picked up on: automatic laser rifles are now correctly benefiting from the Commando perk rather than Rifleman. Makes sense. Duffel bags. Players will now drop a duffel bag if they're disconnected, which makes sense, because as far as I'm aware there's no rejoin game option, so if you end up being disconnected your character's effectively dead, so at least this way you can be looted, which is probably more for the benefit of your teammates than anybody else, but does make sense. Presumably that'll include pressing Alt F4 as well. Ground Pounder has fixed an issue causing Ground Pounder not to work with the automatic combat rifle. Okay, good. Last Laugh. Grenades dropped when a player with Last Laugh is downed can no longer damage the player that dropped them. That's good. That really did need a fix. Definitely an evil perk, that one, but yeah, it shouldn't affect the player who dropped the grenade, I think that's a reasonable change. An interesting one here: enemy nameplates and health now only appear to players who have damaged them within the last 5 seconds. So you might see somebody getting shot at in the distance, but you shouldn't see where they are so easily, unless you're the one who's actually hurt them. So that makes sense. Increases the challenge a little bit more. It's generally, yeah, I think that's probably a good change. And my personal favourite: the volume of impact sound effects has been reduced for punches thrown by candidates inside Vault 51. No longer going to be deafened by people punching everybody. Fantastic. So, yeah, an absolutely humongous patch, hugely dominated by little quality of life changes more than anything else. Surprised there's not been anything about well, kind of surprised, kind of not actually, about the upcoming seasonal event surrounding Graham and his barbecue. But I suppose that won't be mentioned until it actually goes live, which might be patch 11.5, or it might just be a little hotfix type thing just to make it live. But I'm assuming it's been included in the background with this, so keep the eye out on Reddit for the data mine on that, and we might find out what's going on there. I've got a sneaking suspicion that's going to be the case. I'll keep my ear to the ground on it as well. So yeah, lots of really cool things. Not 100% on some things, but I think on the whole this is a much more positive patch. It's a move in the right direction and should generally improve the playing experience around Fallout 76, which is always welcome. So I do hope you guys found this useful and informative. If you did, please do hit those buttons for me. It's always very, very much appreciated, and let me know what you thought about the various changes down in the comments as well. If you're really enjoying the content, please do consider becoming a channel member as well. The support is massively appreciated and very, very much helps. And as always, social media links down in the description, so you can catch up with me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and so on if you'd like to. Link to our Discord server down there as well if you want to chat to each other over there, and I keep dropping in and out. So if you'd like to join the occasional Nuclear Winter games, that will be the main way I'm going to focus on communicating, so that's definitely worth doing over there as well. But for now, I'm going to say thank you very much for everybody who's watching, and I will be speaking to you all very, very soon.